The story does not begin with a crime scene or a courtroom, but with absence, missing records, sealed files, redacted names. Long before the public learned the name Jeffrey Epstein, a quiet structure of wealth, access, and protection had already been built around him. According to financial records, Epstein moved easily through elite banking systems despite unclear sources of income. Reports suggest that by the late 1980s and early 1990s, he had positioned himself not as a visible tycoon, but as a facilitator, someone who connected money, people, and influence while remaining largely out of view. Documents indicate that Epstein cultivated relationships in multiple worlds at once. He appeared in academic circles, philanthropic spaces, political fundraisers, and private social gatherings. According to flight logs and property records, he owned multiple residences, including a Manhattan townhouse, a private island, and properties in New Mexico and Florida. These locations were not merely homes. Records suggest they functioned as controlled environments, places where normal oversight was limited and access was tightly managed. Media coverage in the early years focused on Epstein as a wealthy financier with powerful friends. What received less attention was the pattern of silence that followed him. Court filings indicate that complaints emerged long before his first arrest. Police reports from Florida show that as early as the mid-2000s, local authorities were aware of allegations involving underage girls. According to those reports, multiple witnesses described similar patterns of recruitment, transport, and payment. The consistency of these accounts raised internal concern. Yet the outcome did not match the severity of the allegations. Documents indicate that in 2008, Epstein entered into a non-prosecution agreement that limited federal charges and sealed key information. According to legal analysts, such agreements are rare, especially in cases involving multiple alleged victims. The deal also reportedly extended immunity to unnamed potential co-conspirators, a provision that would later draw intense scrutiny. What the media did not fully explore at the time was how this agreement was reached. Emails and court filings released years later suggest coordination between Epstein's legal team and federal prosecutors. Records indicate meetings occurred outside standard procedures. Some communications were not disclosed until compelled by later court orders. According to observers, the lack of transparency created an environment where questions multiplied, but answers remained out of reach. After serving a brief jail sentence under unusually permissive conditions, Epstein returned to public life. Media coverage largely moved on. According to flight records, he continued traveling. According to visitor logs, high-profile individuals continued to appear at his properties. These records do not establish wrongdoing by those individuals, but they do raise questions about awareness, proximity, and accountability. The media, for the most part, treated these connections as social trivia rather than investigative leads. Behind the scenes, civil cases quietly continued. Sealed depositions accumulated. According to court documents, several accusers attempted to bring broader claims, only to face procedural barriers, jurisdictional challenges, and non-disclosure agreements. Reports suggest that settlements often included strict confidentiality clauses. Each settlement reduced public visibility while increasing private knowledge held by a small circle of attorneys and judges. The concept of the Epstein Files refers not to a single document, but to a collection of materials scattered across jurisdictions. Police reports, flight logs, financial transfers, email correspondence, court transcripts. Many of these documents existed for years without coordinated analysis. According to investigative journalists, no single newsroom had the resources or legal protection to assemble the full picture. When renewed attention emerged in 2019, it was not because new crimes had occurred, but because old ones resurfaced. According to prosecutors, new witnesses came forward. According to reporters, earlier victims felt safer speaking after cultural attitudes toward abuse began to shift. This time, the narrative changed. Epstein was arrested on federal charges related to sex trafficking. Media coverage intensified, but still focused largely on Epstein himself. What remained underexplored was the system that enabled him. Financial documents suggest complex trust arrangements, Tax records indicate charitable donations that granted access to elite institutions. According to former associates, Epstein presented himself as indispensable, a problem solver for powerful people. This role, according to analysts, often creates a form of informal immunity, where scrutiny is discouraged because too many interests are at stake. Then, in August 2019, Epstein died in federal custody. The official ruling was suicide. According to the Department of Justice, multiple failures occurred at the detention facility. Guards reportedly fell asleep, cameras malfunctioned, cell checks were missed. Each failure, taken alone, could be explained as negligence. Together, they formed a pattern that intensified public suspicion. According to polls conducted at the time, a significant portion of the public expressed disbelief in the official explanation. Media coverage exploded, then narrowed. The focus shifted to speculation rather than documentation. In that shift, important questions were sidelined. What happened to the evidence? What happened to the investigations that depended on Epstein's testimony? Court records indicate that several cases stalled. Some accusers reported losing momentum as legal strategies changed. After Epstein's death, attention turned briefly to associates. Court filings unsealed years later revealed names that had circulated privately but were absent from mainstream reporting. These documents did not allege crimes by all named individuals. They reflected testimony, contacts, and allegations that had not been adjudicated. According to legal experts, the release of such documents is complex, balancing transparency with due process. The media faced a dilemma. Reporting names without convictions risked defamation. Avoiding the names entirely risked preserving secrecy. Many outlets chose caution. As a result, public understanding remained fragmented. Reports suggest that some stories were softened after legal review. Others were never published at all. Meanwhile, financial investigations continued quietly. According to banking compliance reports, Epstein's accounts raised red flags years before his final arrest. Large transfers, offshore structures, unusual transaction patterns. These reports, filed under anti-money laundering regulations, were not public at the time. When some later became known, they suggested that multiple institutions had concerns but did not act decisively. The question of intelligence connections has also lingered. According to publicly available records, Epstein had contact with individuals linked to government agencies and foreign officials. No conclusive evidence has established an intelligence role. However, the presence of these contacts has fueled speculation about protection and leverage. Analysts caution that proximity does not equal participation, yet the overlap remains unexplained. What the media did not fully convey is how power operates in layers. Epstein did not need universal protection. He needed selective indifference. He needed enough people to look away, enough institutions to delay, enough complexity to exhaust challengers. According to sociologists, this is how systemic abuse persists, not through conspiracy, but through alignment of incentives. In the years since, journalists have attempted to reconstruct the network. Some relied on leaked documents. Others interviewed former employees, pilots, and household staff. Their accounts, while varied, often describe strict control, compartmentalization, and an atmosphere where questioning was discouraged. According to these accounts, many participants saw only fragments, never the whole. Legal efforts continue. Civil cases remain active. Documents are still being unsealed. Each release adds detail but not closure. According to attorneys involved, the process could take years. Statutes of limitation, jurisdictional conflicts, and the absence of a central defendant complicate outcomes. The Epstein Files, in this sense, are not a solution. They are a mirror. They reflect how wealth can obscure accountability, how legal systems can be negotiated, how media attention can surge and fade. They also reflect the cost of silence. For victims, delays meant lost time, lost evidence, and lost trust. As records continue to emerge, the story remains unfinished. Not because nothing is known, but because so much remains unexamined. According to historians, some cases are not defined by a single revelation, but by the accumulation of facts that never quite align into resolution. Epstein's case fits that pattern. The unanswered questions persist. Who knew and when? Who intervened and why? Which safeguards failed by accident and which failed by design? According to documents, each question has partial answers, none complete. The media, constrained by law and caution, has told parts of the story. Other parts remain buried in filings, archives, and memories. In the end, the Epstein Files do not speak with one voice. They whisper through margins, redactions, and footnotes. They suggest a world where influence moves faster than justice and where truth emerges slowly, if at all. The silence surrounding them is not empty. It is crowded with information, waiting to be connected, waiting to be understood.